Were you one of the millions of Americans who saw the recent eclipse? Did you know that something is wrong between what you were witnessing and what the scientific community told you what you were seeing? It's called cognitive dissonance, and we've all been told a lie. A couple of days before the Great American Solar Eclipse, I watched a YouTube video where the questions of the size of the moon's shadow was raised. If you haven't been paying attention, then you wouldn't know that people are questioning how catastrophically tiny the shadow is in relation to the actual size of the moon. Not only is the diameter of the shadow a physical impossibility, but there is another physics problem regarding the eclipse that has been totally overlooked, and once again concerns a critical error in planetary physics. Have a look at this photo. I took this photo myself and zoomed the camera slightly so the moon would look accurate in the photo to the size I was observing with my own eyes. I think I did a pretty good job at getting the dimensions right. Now, the moon is 27% of the size of Earth, so if I was to take this picture and adjust the moon to fit, then pretend that I took this photo from the moon, then this is how big the Earth would look relative to standing on the moon. It's pretty big, isn't it? Given the sheer size of Earth in the sky, one would correctly assume that light reflected towards the moon would be greater, but it gets better. Earth is actually more reflective than the moon, and this is the problem. When NASA sent the astronauts to the moon, they forgot to send a light meter that could deliver accurate readings back to Earth of Earth light during the lunar night. This would have given scientists a dead accurate account of the Earthshine on the new moon, but because no permanent instrument was ever sent to the moon, ever, astrophysicists still have to rely on mathematical equations to model how much reflected light to expect. Sana Dolichva, an astrophysicist from Melbourne, Australia, wrote this on the subject. The moon has an albedo, which is the measurement of how much light is reflected without being absorbed, of 0.136. The energy the full moon is reflecting at the Earth is 0.0037 watts per meter squared. For the purposes of comparison, a 100 watt light bulb from 10 meters away has a brightness of 0.02 watts per meter squared. Remember, the moon is actually dimmer than that. Now, we've all experienced moonlight and shadows during a full moon, so we all know how bright the moonlight is. The Earth, on the other hand, has an albedo of 0.306. The energy Earth reflects at the moon is 0.12 watts per meter squared, so because it's bigger and more reflective, the Earth, as seen from the moon, gives off about 32 times more energy per second. That means the full Earth in the lunar sky is roughly 32 times brighter than the full moon in the Earth's sky, and 6 times brighter than a 100 watt light bulb. Now, given that amount of light, and given that the Earth lost only a tiny fraction of light from a piddly 70-mile black disk during the eclipse, where then is the Earthshine upon the moon when it otherwise blocks out the sun? This is what one should expect from the scientific model as the moon blocks out the sun, and likewise, the sky should also be a pale blue 70 miles either side of you. So why does the moon not glow even a fraction in the bask of Earthshine during a total solar eclipse? It's physically impossible that the moon remain pitch black when 98.3% of the reflected light from a full Earth was directed squarely at it during the recent American eclipse. Our scientific community headed by NASA has never explained planetary mechanics correctly when discussing the moon shadow cast upon the Earth during a solar eclipse, and neither does it communicate on the complete lack of planet shine that the moon should be receiving from Earth. Given that neither physics models are demonstrated during a total solar eclipse, there are two propositions that the global community now need to ask. If planetary mechanics is not being demonstrated during an eclipse, then where are we? And second, why is the scientific community not being forthright with the same question?
Johnny, that really hurt!
Do you think that universities would be teaching the basics of eclipses to freshmen? It's not like they don't already know the mechanics of an eclipse backwards. After all, almost anyone can demonstrate an eclipse without holding a degree because it's elementary level information, and the testament to its authority has long been accepted. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate to you the fact that NASA has not only lied to the entire world population on this matter, but that NASA recently doubled down on this lie with fraudulent evidence. In part 1 of this video covering Earthshine, I pointed out the mistake in this CGI animation covering the Great American Eclipse. Now for that video I didn't have the time or resources to reanimate what an eclipse should have looked like, and instead used flags like this to stir your senses into re-examining what you'd been taught. I might point out that this is a great example of how a graphic artist without a degree in science can create such a compelling presentation. This that you're looking at is an echo chamber of what the scientific community teaches children and reinforces to adults what happens during a solar eclipse, while this simple diagram represents what should actually be happening. Let me explain the difference. During a total eclipse, an observer on the Earth who looks to the heavens will see that the Sun and the Moon are exactly the same size in the sky. These diagrams show the Sun to be much larger than the Moon, therefore every total eclipse diagram that you've ever seen and everything you're ever taught about eclipses is incorrect. These independent video examples are just a few of the thousands now available to watch on the internet that demonstrate the non-existence of a penumbra. They are all supporting evidence that point toward NASA alongside affiliated international space agencies that all represent major institutions, international academies, astronomical societies, universities, and a vast community of intellectuals worldwide, are blatantly defrauding the scientific and educational community of the knowledge and facts of where we live. Now I understand that this basic information goes way back before Operation Paperclip and the Nazi-instituted NASA even existed, but with the billions of taxpayer dollars taken from American citizens every year, alongside international investors of NASA space technologies and scientific research, somebody should have taken heed of this mistake and reported it by now. Several years ago, NASA posted this time-lapse video of Earth, purportedly from NOAA's Deep Space Climate Observatory satellite that's stationed 1 million miles away in outer space. Despite the fact that this looks 100% like the Photoshop airbrush tool was used to deface the infamous blue marble, you can plainly see what NASA purports to be the shadow of the Moon being cast upon the globe. Take note of the size and appearance of the shadow. NASA posted this video within 2 days of the American eclipse, once again asserting that this is actual time-lapse footage from the same satellite stationed 1 million miles into outer space. Again, take note of the size and the appearance of the shadow. To demonstrate my point, here is real video footage of the eclipse from a balloon. This is NASA's footage. Here is real video footage from a plane. This is NASA's footage. Here is real video footage from a mountaintop. This is NASA's footage. This is real video footage from another balloon. This is NASA's footage. This is a moon shadow upon Jupiter. Do you notice the shadow? It's the same size as the moon. I could keep going all day, and it simply frames the inevitable truth that NASA has presented material to the world that it claims to be real when amateur and professional footage alike proves it to be otherwise. The inquisitive must further ask, why has the scientific community accepted the catastrophically tiny moon shadow in relation to the scientifically agreed upon size of the moon? Because, in all seriousness, the moon is supposed to be 2159 miles in diameter, so how could its shadow possibly be just 70 miles wide? It defies physics. Here's Jupiter's moon shadow again, supporting no evidence of a penumbra. With Earthshine also conspicuously absent during any total solar eclipse, it becomes absolutely ludicrous that the scientific community haven't put one and one together and come to the only rational conclusion that planetary mechanics is not being demonstrated. And NASA knows it. It doesn't stop at this blatantly CGI video, because if it can be easily proven that no penumbra exists, and NASA has been disguising this fact, then NASA must be remaining silent on a scientific discovery that they've known since the early days of spaceflight. Do you get it? Do you get it?
Yeah, there's only a surface. There's nothing inside.
Is the sun actually, do you believe, combusting in on
It's
itself?
not burning anything. There's no fusion in the sun. That's well understood.
Proven.
Yeah, well, there's just not the way to prove that there is any. It's only in the flares do you get fusion. That's why all the X-rays. The flares, the arcs, and the X-rays, and the microwaves, and whatever result of fusion in the arcs. There's no fusion in the sun. They don't know how the sun works. It's not burning anything. It doesn't have to. It's a converter.
Of what?
I don't know. Nobody knows. But that's what it does. That's the only thing it can do, because that's how everything works.
It's transforming from another dimension.
Yeah, you could say it's taking energy from another dimension, counter space.
Astrophysicists and astronomers alike have a duty to re-examine the eclipse model that they were taught as a child. Further, NASA must be lawfully challenged over the fact that they have passed blatantly fraudulent CGI imagery as evidence from space to the world. We must also ask more fundamentally, how is it that the scientific community can remain derelict in their duty to identify such an error for generations? Many questions are now being asked of the entire space program by diligent individuals that are all beginning to ask the one question that will ultimately become of this inquiry. Where are we in the universe? I have further evidence of NASA JPL fraud involving Voyager 1 that I'll discuss in my next video. So keep an ear out if you want to be the first to find out, and remember, together we're going to be awesome. Shalom.
Charlie.